Frost and Fury. Welcome to the Viking Age. You wake to a briny wind that slices through your woolen hood like a jagged blade, and a sky the colour of cold steel. Today, we're diving headlong into the Viking Age. Not the cinematic slow-mo battles or polished helms gleaming in sunlight, but the raw reality of life in a world defined by fjords, firelit halls, and the clamour of axes on shields. From dawn's first mist rolling off the North Sea to the crackle of hearth fires at dusk, this era pulsed with the scent of salt, pine smoke and sweat. Picture a village nestled against a windswept coastline. Sod-roofed longhouses huddle together like survivors of some ancient storm. Inside, a meagre breakfast of barley porridge and dried fish is scooped from a communal wooden bowl, the spoon clattering against its carved rim. Frost still clings to patchy grass outside, crunching underfoot as you step into ankle-deep mud. A pig's snort echoes from the sty, while a gabled roof creaks under the weight of snowmelt. A neighbour mumbles a greeting in Old Norse, voice husky from last night's mead. And that smell, something between wet wool, turned earth, and the sweet tang of yesterday's blood, and you think, good luck making it through a single sunrise. In the marketplace, the scene sprawls like an open-air tapestry of bartering chaos. Fishermen haul baskets of cod, their hands red and slippery, while a merchant from the Baltic hawks amber beads polish to a honey glow. A farmer shoves a wagon loaded with goatskins, the bleating and bleary-eyed animals stirring up a haze of dust and manure. Nearby, a stall of fresh butter struggles to keep its form in the chill, its pale gold blinking beneath a patchwork tarp. The merchant's breath fogs the air with every sail. Fine oxidized brooches from the halls of Jarl Ragnar himself. Though no one there has ever met Ragnar, only heard rumours of his lavish feasts. Let's drift upstream now, following a tandem of longboats slicing through fjord waters so glassy they mirror the cliffs overhead. The paddles dip in unison, churning the cold current into ripples that ripple back, reflections of eider ducks skimming the surface. Aboard the lead ship, a skald, our equivalent of a wandering bard, strums a lyre carved from a single birch branch. His tune is jaunty, barely masking the dread threading through every verse. Drown beneath the waves, or fall to another's axe, it whispers. On deck, leather-rimmed shields lean like sentinels. Iron-tipped spears glint with salt spray. Below deck, rowers grunt and shift their benches, the timbers creaking in protest as they ready for landfall. You disembark on rocky shore where driftwood smoulders under a stone cairn, offering a smoky haze that wraps round ankles like cobwebs. The village chief strides forward in a fur-lined cloak, eyes dark as storm clouds. He points at a patch of fertile soil where barley wilts under peat ash. "Grow this," he commands, voice as firm as hewn oak. You crouch to test the earth, cold, damp, and laced with small pebbles that wedge between your fingers. No miracle loam here, friend. Now pivot with me to the grand hall, where the long table creaks under the weight of salted meats, honey-glazed poultry, and cheeks of goat roasted over an open flame. The air ripples with laughter, the crack of drinking horns, and the hiss of hot broth being ladled into shared bowls. You catch the tang of pickled roots and the heady sweetness of warmed mead, and your nostrils flare with anticipation, until a rival chieftain thrusts a challenge across the bench, staring you down like a wolf sizing up its prey. Tense silence, then a smack of gauntlet on wood, and the hall erupts anew. Slide now into the sanctum of the Cirrus, where a faint glow illuminates horns and runestones scattered on an alderwood table. Incense curls skyward, scent of crushed juniper and charred yew that stings your eyes. She lays out a goat bone rune, A crooked line for danger, a jagged blade for betrayal. You lean in, heart drumming, as she whispers of winter raids and blood debt owed. Every breath you take tastes of prophecy and pine tar. By afternoon the smithy's bellows thunder like distant thunderclaps, forging broadaxes and chain mail riveted in the red heat of the forge. Sparks snap upward, illuminating the blackened walls and the silhouette of a hammer raised high. The tang of hot iron and coal smoke sticks in your throat. Your ears ring with the rhythmic pounding, 1, 2, 3, until you swear the world itself is being reshaped. This is just a taste of the Viking Age tapestry, a world where every breath brings a new challenge, every horizon teases adventure, and every ember hides a spark of legend. The wind shifts, carrying the faint echo of distant horns and the promise of storms on the open sea. Before we dive back in, let me know where you're listening from. If this journey chills you in the best way, subscribe. Tomorrow, I have another story for you. Through whispering woods and wolf-guarded glens. You step away from the great house's warmth into the bracing air, boots sinking softly into the forest floor where needles and moss form a quiet carpet. The chieftain's longhouse fades behind you, its smoke curling skyward in farewell. Before your eyes stretches the winding trail, a serpentine path carved by hooves and paws, lit by shafts of golden light slicing through pine boughs. Each breath tastes of pine resin and damp earth. You sense the forest as a living tapestry, the faint rustle of mice in undergrowth, the hum of insects hidden inside gnarled roots, the distant drip of water falling into unseen pools. The wolves' pact weighs in your pocket, the talisman's runes pulsing with a gentle heat against your side, guiding each step deeper into Vargun's wild heart. Your lantern's flame flickers as dusk tiptoes closer, and shadows stretch between tree trunks like silent sentinels. You follow the navigator's carved bone pendant glow, the hermit's gift, toward an amphitheatre of stones where moonlight pools at night. Now, in daylight, you see runes carved into each boulder, symbols of journeys taken, bargains made, and debts honoured long before your time. With each rune, the air hums, a low vibration you feel in your chest. You reach out, fingertips grazing the cool rock, and the forest exhales. Leaves stir above, and for a moment you glimpse movement. Pale shapes weaving between trunks. Wolves? A soft but insistent howl rolls across the glen. Friendly or warning? The navigator, eyes bright, kneels to pour water into a shallow carved trough. The liquid shimmers, reflecting the sky and the forest canopy like a broken mirror. He murmurs a verse in Old Norse, a song of safe passage and gratitude, words that wind through the pines. The wolves emerge, sleek grey fur rippling as a pack materialises from mist among the rocks. Their golden eyes lock onto yours, unblinking, ancient. You hold your breath. The pack leader, larger than the rest, steps forward, hoofbeats of silence on moss. It sniffs the air, nostrils flaring around your scent. Salt, hearth smoke, iron. Then, lifting its maw, it offers a low bark. You and your companions exhale in unison, a bridge formed. As the pack melts back into the forest, you rise, driven onward by newfound confidence. Night encroaches, and you find a sheltered glen ringed by towering pines. Here the wolves have marked territory, white bones scattered at the base of stone pillars. With solemn reverence, you clear a small fire pit, igniting kindling until sparks drift upward like drifting stars. Shadows dance across the pillars' runes, reciting history in flicker and flame. The skald begins a new verse, weaving tales of tonight's encounter. How wolves welcomed the travellers and honoured the pact. His voice is a cloak of warmth against the night's chill. Meanwhile, the navigator consults his runed charts by firelight. Tomorrow's road curves through mountain passes to an ancient shrine where the Jarl's ancestors once offered tribute to gods older than memory. You share sparse rations, a strip of salted fish, a handful of barley, and the hermit's talisman glows faintly at your throat, pulsing like a living heartbeat. Under the wolf-guarded sky, you feel the web of fate stretched taut. Sea, forest, and ancient stone converging in your journey's purpose. As embers die and eyelids grow heavy, you stand sentinel before the fire, heart attuned to every crackle, every breath of wind, every distant howl. For on Vagan, even sleep demands honour and vigilance, and tomorrow's dawn will call you to further secrets, deeper mysteries, and the unending saga of the wolf-bound Vikings. Sea of ice and steel. The horizon shivers with promise and peril as you stand at the prow of the longship, sea spray frosting your eyelashes in tiny prisms of light. The fjord ends here, broadening into the open North Atlantic, a realm ruled by wind and wave, where every swell is a question and every gust an answer. You tuck your cloak tighter, the wool damp against your neck, and taste the salt on your lips. Below deck, rowers' backs rise and fall like the tide, each heave of the oar a testament to endurance and iron will. This voyage is no mere journey. It is an odyssey carved from bone and breath. Already you've traded furs for silver coins, bartered amber for Byzantine silks, and raided convents for riches whispered by nuns behind locked doors. But now the Jarl demands more, a chart to lands unseen, a hold filled with exotic wares, a legend to be told in future mead halls. The ship creaks under the weight of expectations. As dawn's pale light streaks across the water, you scan the deck's bustle. Sailors tighten ropes with hands calloused as driftwood. A young rower, maybe 12 winters old, coughs, sea air rough on a tender throat. A stoic navigator, runes and stars etched in memory, grips a wooden quadrant, eyes steady as a falcon. You offer him a nod, and he returns it with a ghost of a smile. Solidarity in the face of the unknown. The galley's galley smells of fish, yesterday caught, now gravitating towards sour. You drop a hunk of dried cheese into your mouth, its chalky texture grounding you as the ship pitches. Nearby, the cook ladles porridge into wooden bowls, thin but hot. Steam curls upward, mixing with the odour of oil lamps and shavings of driftwood burning low. You lean toward the ship's rail, peering at the water where whales sometimes breach like living myths. Today, only gulls, squadron white against vaults of grey, wheeling and squawking as if mocking your resolve. You flick a crust of bread overboard. In moments, tiny fish flash upward, darting through the oily sheen. It's a small communion, life feeding life, hunger driving each to its fate. Hours pass in salt-scented quiet until the sky darkens, clouds roiling like spilled ink. A shout rings out. "Storm!" The helmsman braces at the wheel, his knuckles pale. The sail billows, then lurches, threatening to tear free. You seize a rope, heart hammering, and join the chorus of commands. "Lower! Lower!" Arms strain, voices crack, but inch by agonizing inch, the sail falls, snapping like a wounded bird. Rain hammers the deck, drumming against shields lashed to the hull. The longship groans and dips into frothy troughs. You cling to the rail, every muscle alive, feeling the ship's spine bend beneath you. The wind howls, a primal roar that drowns prayers and song alike. Yet amid the fury a fierce thrill surges. Here on the edge of the world you're alive. When at last the storm relents, revealing a sky washed and renewed, you catch sight of the land, jagged silhouettes that promise both refuge and challenge. Beneath the cliffs lies a hidden cove, its beach strewn with the detritus of previous voyages, broken ore fragments, shattered pottery glinting like buried treasure, bits of sailcloth stiff with salt. You disembark, water sluicing from your boots, to marshal a landing party. Torches sputter in the wind, casting stuttering light over the mouth of a cave carved by centuries of tide and rock. Inside, the air is still, heavy with centuries of secrets. The navigator steps forward, unrolling a parchment map marked in sagging runes. Here lie green hills rumoured to shelter vineyards, not near home, but perhaps here in temperate meadows that flirt with warmth. Venturing deeper, you find ancient carvings on the walls, twisting serpents and horned gods, guardian spirits etched by hands long returned to earth. The torchlight flickers over each symbol, igniting them as if the cave breathes its own eerie life. A silence falls, punctuated only by your own heart in your ears. Beyond the carvings, the cavern opens into a natural amphitheatre. Grottos of dripping stalactites hang like inverted swords above a pool of crystalline water. You kneel to sip, the cool liquid silencing every ache. In its depths shimmer relics, bullets of bronze, rings of twisted copper, and at the pool's edge a shield boss scored with ancient blows. It sings faintly when tapped, a metallic echo that resonates in your bones. This trove of artifacts is a find beyond gold, proof of trade as old as the mountains themselves, a testament to travellers who preceded you. The navigator's eyes shine as he traces paths through memory. From here, a day's trek east to fields of rye, or south to vineyards whispered by Frankish monks. You gather what you can carry, rings for tribute, spearheads for forging, a vial of water for blessings, and prepare to retrace your steps. Above you, the sky yawns open once more, sunbeams splaying across the sea's gilt surface. The storm's edge lingers on the horizon, a dark curl of defiance you know will test you again. Climbing back aboard, you feel the weight of the journey press in, exhaustion and exhilaration entwined. As the ship sets sail under a pale sun, you glance back at the cave's mouth, knowing you carry its secrets in your very bones. The fjord's mouth calls you home, laden with spoils and stories that will grow in the telling. And though every wave that slides beneath the hull brings you closer to familiar shores, your pulse thrums with a promise of the next horizon. Steel meets ice, salt meets blood. The Viking saga marches on in each breath, each oar stroke, each rune whispered on the wind. The iron-bound raid. The bell's echo still trembles on the water as you sprint back along the tide-slick dock, every step pounding like a war drum in your chest. Past repaired longships and coiled ropes, past the scent of fresh pine tar and pressed wool, you find the Jarl waiting at the prow of the flagship, his cloak whipping like storm-driven sails. His gaze is a sharpened blade, silent command to those who would follow beyond horizon's curve. You climb aboard, boots thudding on wet planks, and take your place among the warrior crew. Your hands tremble, not from fear, but anticipation. The air crackles with salt and iron, with the latent promise of glory and blood. Around you, shields clatter into position, forming the familiar mosaic of lacquered wood and iron rim, each emblazoned with clan symbols: wolves for vengeance, ravens for prophecy, dragons for ferocity. A horn blows, low and resonant, a slow breath exhaled at the world. The flagship's sails catch the wind, halting the ship's forward momentum, hung between home safety and the unknown's promise. Behind you, the quay recedes, the smoke of longhouse hearths curling skyward in farewell or admonition. Ahead, only the open sea, dark and patient. The first watch is silent, broken only by the creak of rigging and the sweep of oars from support vessels. As you adjust the strap of your shield, you steal glances at the crew, hardened men whose scars map tales of past battles, wide-eyed youths tasting war's maiden breath, battle maidens whose steel-kept hair glimmers like spun gold in the dawn. Each shares your silent vow to etch this raid into the annals of song. Midday sun glares off black water as you near the enemy shoreline, a cluster of wooden palisades guarding a wealthy monastery rumoured to hold silver relic vessels and gifted manuscripts penned by distant Frankish scribes. The Jarl signals and the longship sweeps in, cutting through the shallows with practised grace. Warriors crouch behind shields as the prow scrapes a shifting sandbank. Boots meet turf soggy with marsh and morning dew. You step down into wet grass, the shock cold against your ankles. Gulls swirl overhead, startled as the shield wall forms, 3 rows deep, shields overlapping, teeth of iron spears glinting. A single horn responds from the shore, a clarion defiance that echoes across the marsh. Warriors chant your war cry, a guttural chorus that shudders the air. Then the charge, a thunderous surge that rolls across the field like a tidal wave. You crash into the palisade, axe raised high, and hear the wood splinter beneath your blow. Behind you, comrades hack and shove, each strike a promise of passage. The palisade gives, and you spill through the breach into chaos. Monks in dirt-stained robes scrambling for cover, acolytes shrieking as they clutch gilded chalices, archers loosing shafts that hiss through the air like angry snakes. You duck behind a fallen wagon, a splintered wheel your only shield, feeling near-miss shafts rattle your mail. A monk lunges, dagger in hand, his eyes wild with terror. You parry, and steel meets steel in a ring that tastes of sweat and desperation. With a practiced twist, you send him stumbling back, eyes wide as revelation. Beyond the wagon, the monastery's chapel looms, a sturdy timber frame crowned by a stone steeple. Torches cut into the gloom, revealing treasures unprotected. Silver reliquaries etched with saints' faces, leather-bound codices glimmering with inks of lapis and gold. The Jarl strides in, his voice a dark hymn. Secure the bounty. Offer the vessels to Odin, the words we burn. You select a reliquary, its cold surface carved with a saint's serene visage. As you lift it, the weight speaks of distant faiths and foreign hands. Around you, others claim chalices, bells, and sacred icons, stacking them in cloth-lined crates. Sparks of fire leap as a torch falls, igniting oil from a toppled flask. Flames lick at manuscripts, and a choir of shrieks rises, prayer and panic waltzing in smoke. Steel clashes as defenders, farmers turned militia, rush in through a service door. The longship crew repels them with disciplined fury, spear and sword, shield and thrust. You press forward, adrenaline sharpening each sense, the clatter of iron, the stink of smoke, the hot sting of blood against skin. Within minutes that stretch like hours, the defenders break, scattering into the marsh's reeds. The raid's thunder dims, leaving only the crackle of flames and the heavy breathing of the conquerors. You stand amid smouldering manuscripts and upturned pews, treasure piled high, but the air thick with regret. A reminder that even victory tastes bittersweet. At your back, the bell from the chapel tolls once more, a lament for lost souls or a summons for reprisal. It doesn't matter which. You secure your reliquary, bracing for the surge back to the ships, to hearth and hall, where this day's spoils will be weighed and sang. The tide ebbs as you step into the shallows, treasure in hand. and the flagship's silhouette gleams against the burning chapel. With one last look at the conflagration, you turn to join the others, the weight of conquest heavy in your arms but lighter in your heart. For in the Viking Age, every raid reborn you, a flame against the dark sea, and though the wind carries the distant echoes of bells, and perhaps the promise of vengeance, your pulse returns to the rhythm of oars, the saga steering toward home. Shadow of the Skerries. Morning mist drapes the docks like a spectral veil, and every carved figurehead gazes out toward the shifting horizon with hollow eyes. The repaired longships line up along the quay, their freshly planed oak planks gleaming dully beneath a blanket of dew. You walk the length of the fleet, your boots leaving faint impressions on damp wood, each footprint a reminder of the labour and watchful eyes that brought them back from ruin. The scent of pine tar clings to your fingertips, mingling with the salt-sweet tang of sea air and the sharp bite of iron tools left cooling overnight. Your task today is to gather supplies for the next voyage, barrels of salted fish, bundles of rush mats for bedding, flint and tinder for fires in distant lands. You shoulder a coil of hemp rope, its rough strands cutting into woolen sleeves, and crane your neck to watch Eric, the boat builder, supervise a pair of oak beams being lashed to the hull. Each plank is bound with twisted iron nails, hammered deep by the rhythmic blows of a hammer that resounds like a heartbeat through the haven. A call rises from the far end of the docks, the Jarl's horn deeper and more insistent than any other. You pause, coil of rope in hand, as a horned longship slides out of its berth. The Jarl stands at the prow, his cloak an anthem of conquest, his arm raised in silent command. War banners, emblazoned with wolves and dragons, snap in the breeze. The crew falls into hushed readiness, each warrior's breath a cloud of white, each eye a sharpened flint. You're torn between duty to the docks and the allure of the adventure beyond. Steel connects to sea in a union older than memory, the bow of the longship creaking under the strain of anticipation. A murmur ripples through the gathered crowd, whispers of skerries ahead, of reefs that have torn the bellies from lesser vessels, of currents that devour the unwary. Yet the Jarl's gaze sweeps over you, and an unspoken command anchors you to action. You sling the rope across your shoulder and sprint to catch the gangplank as it is lowered into place. The thrum of oars begins, a collective breath exhaled in unison, and you step aboard, boots thudding on wet planks. The longship shudders as sails unfurl, capturing the wind's hungry fingers, and you feel the vessel surge forward, carrying you toward carved stones and hidden dangers. The sea opens beneath the keel, glittering with sunlit diamonds. Gulls wheel in scattered flocks, their cries breaking the hush. You join the helmsman, peering through the haze at the ragged silhouette of the Skerries, an archipelago of jagged rocks jutting from the blue like a crown of thorns. The navigator, face streaked with soot and salt, furrows his brow as he consults a rune-inscribed chart, hands steady despite the ship's rock and roll. As the shoreline recedes, the wind's voice grows colder, carrying the promise of storm-swept nights and roaring breakers. You secure your cloak, feeling the weight of iron at your waist and the pulse of adrenaline beneath your ribs. Every creak of the hull, every whisper of fabric is amplified in the open expanse. Hours pass in salt-drenched silence, broken only by the rhythmic slap of oar blades and the murmured directions of the helmsman. The Skerries emerge from the haze, looming like sentinel guardians, their surfaces pitted by time, streaked with seabird guano, licked by restless waves. You sense the tension mount. Even the oarsman straighten, grips white-knuckled on worn handles. Then the first shudder, an almost imperceptible jolt as the keel scrapes a submerged rock, a collective gasp. The navigator curses under his breath, then barks orders to shift weight to ease the sail. For a heartbeat, the world tilts, and you taste pure panic. Then a triumphant cheer as the ship rights itself, gliding free. But now the danger is clear. The path through this jagged labyrinth is narrow and fraught. You gather at the bow, peering at the twisting channel ahead, where water churns and eddies around unseen obstacles. A distant rock formation looms, crowned by a lone pine that clings defiantly to life. From here, every movement counts. One wrong misstep, one misread rune, and the sea will claim this vessel and its crew with tooth and claw. An arrow-shaped rock flashes past to starboard, the water breaking white at its tip. The helmsman steers portside, but another hidden shard slices a line of white foam along the hull. You grip the railing as the ship quivers, every muscle taut. In the distance the Jarl's horn sounds again, not as a summons but as a pulse. Measure the rhythm, gauge the heart of the passage. Your boots find purchase on the wet deck as you sprint to help tighten lines, working in wordless harmony with seasoned sailors whose hands move like memory. Each knot tied, each rope hauled, is a prayer offered to gods of sea and storm. Sweat beads at your brow, though the air is cold. Pulses drum in ears as the longship threads its way through the rocky gauntlet, and then light. A clearing at the channel's end where the skerries fall back, revealing a sheltered cove where the waves soften into ripples that lap gently at sandy shores. Relief washes through you, coiling in the chest warmer than any hearth fire. Here you will drop anchor, gather fresh water from a hidden spring, and scout the island beyond. Rumours speak of a hermit's dwelling, a repository of strange maps and half-forgotten lore. If the Jarl's ambitions extend beyond mere plunder, this is where destiny waits, in moss-choked caves and beneath the roots of ancient pines. You step onto solid ground as the longship rocks to rest. The skerries now a battleground turned retreat. The navigator throws a knowing glance. This cove is sanctuary tonight, but only tonight. Tomorrow, the open sea will beckon once more, and the saga will continue. This story took us a long time to gather. If you're finding it worth the cold, subscribe. And now, back to the hearth. Echoes beyond the horizon. You awaken to the creak of ship timbers and the low hum of morning prayers. An echo drifting across the fjord from the stone chapel back home. Your head aches with the memory of salt-soaked nights, and your bones chatter against the chill rippling over the water. Already gulls wheel overhead, their lament a reminder. There is no rest for those who sail these seas. You step onto the deck, the wooden planks slick with dew, and wrap your cloak tight around your shoulders. Before you, the longship rocks gently in a sheltered bay, its sail furled and hull half submerged in the pale quiet of dawn. Around you, shipwrights move with deliberate purpose, their efficient motions speaking of hard-won expertise. You catch the tang of pine tar once more, threaded with the coppery scent of oiled metal and the lingering sweetness of last night's mead. Your mind turns to the journey ahead. Beyond the skerries, the open ocean beckons, an unending expanse of possibility and peril. Rumours tell of distant shores where barley grows tall under warmer suns, where merchants trade linen dyed with indigo, richer than any found in the north. But these tales live in whispers and dreams. To find them, you must thread the needle of hidden reefs and sudden squalls. You stride to the prow where the navigator stands, parchment chart unfurled and runes etched in the margins. His finger traces the path eastward, past jagged rocks and submerged shoals, to an island veiled in mist. The island's name is lost to common tongues, Only the bravest seafarers speak of Vargun, the wolf isle, so called for the packs of feral wolves that prowl its forested cliffs. "Are we ready?" you ask, voice steady despite the adrenaline humming through your veins. He nods, lips pressed thin. The oars are set, the sail mended, and the crew awaits. If the winds favour us, we reach Vargon by the third dusk. A surge of anticipation claws through your chest, equal parts fear and exhilaration. You walk the length of the ship, checking ropes, realigning shields, and accepting nods from stoic warriors. Each face reflects the same truth. This voyage will test every measure of skill, strength, and spirit. And yet, every eye also gleams with a promise of glory beyond measure. The cook emerges with a pot of steaming gruel, its bland warmth a comfort to numb the edge of hunger. You dip a wooden bowl, tasting the simple blend of barley and water, coarse but filling. As you eat, you survey the crew. A smithy slackening his hammer for a moment's rest, rowers stretching cramped shoulders, a skald tuning his lyre in quiet reflection. Their solidarity hums louder than the sea. Behind you, the Jarl's longship looms like a dark sentinel. His presence is as commanding as the sea itself, cloak whipping in the sea breeze, gaze fixed on the horizon. His horn hangs at his waist, a symbol of his authority and his legacy. You recall the tales of his ancestors, of battles carved into rock and alliances brokered with blood and oath. A horn blast splits the morning calm, the signal to launch. Rowers take their positions, muscles coiling like springs. You grip your oar, feeling its familiar weight, and settle into your bench. Around you, paddles dip in unison, carving V-shaped ripples across the glassy water. The longship glides forward, slipping past barnacled stones, leaving behind the safety of the bay. Soon the silhouette of Vargun emerges, a dark mass rising from the sea, crowned by dense forest and pierced by rocky spires. The waves grow restless, churning like liquid steel as the ocean senses the approaching hull. Clouds gather overhead, pale grey bruises threatening thunder and rain. The navigator's voice cuts through the creaking timbers. Watch for the shallows. Reef and skerry cluster here. Follow my call. Your senses sharpen. Salt stings your eyes. You taste thunder on the wind. Oars slash the water in a steady cadence as the crew follows the navigator's commands. Each stroke is prayer, each breath a vow. The ship pitches, riding swells that surge beneath the hull. In the distance, spray arcs over hidden rocks, silent beacons of danger. You stand, bracing against the railing, eyes trained on the channel. The helmsman veers starboard, then port, steering through a gauntlet of stony fingers. Your heart pounds in rhythm with the oars. Suddenly a crack, as if the world itself snapped. The longship shudders, then lurches against an unseen obstacle. Panic flashes, but you fight to steady yourself. The navigator shouts, voices rise, and the crew heaves in concert, easing the ship free. You exhale, breath ragged, and taste relief mingled with resolve. The channel narrows, walls of basalt rising on either flank. Vargun's cliffs loom closer, mottled with lichen and crow nests. Seabirds wheel in circles, crying warnings you can almost decipher. Sea caves yawn like ancient mouths chewing salt water. Your pulse thrums as you slip into the island's embrace. Ahead lies more than gardens and new trade and partners. It holds the unknown, hermits who chart the skies, druids who commune with trees, wolves that guard secrets older than runes. But the sea's roar fades behind you, replaced by the hush of wind and feather. You steady yourself, prepare to leap to the rocky shore. Boots crash against stone as you disembark, gripping your axe and shield. The echo of the longship's horn fades, and the world goes silent, save for the whisper of wind through pine and the distant howl of wolves. Here, on Vargun's rocky soil, your next saga begins. Heartbeat of the Wolf Isle. Daylight breaks like a cracked egg, spilling pale gold across jagged cliffs that tower over the narrow beach. You step off the longship's keel onto dunes of pebbled sand, each tiny stone pressing into your boots with a crisp reminder. You're no longer at sea, but standing on Vargun, the Wolf Isle. Before you, dense pines rise in fortress walls, their needles whispering secrets of wind and wild. The scent of resin mingles with the brine that still clings to your cloak, while the distant crash of surf against basalt forms a steady drumbeat beneath the pine's hush. Around you, the crew stretches and shelters shields against driftwood racks. Salt-crusted axes and spears are planted upright, a silent vigil to the journey that brought you here. Eric, bone deep in leather and ash, breathes in the forest air with a slow reverence. He traces a finger along runes carved into his haft, memorials of ancestors who first mapped these shores. You follow his gaze to the landward path, a narrow game trail winding between moss-draped trunks, where shadows dance and depth seems limitless. Keep your senses sharp, the navigator murmurs, voice hushed as respectful as the forest itself. Wolves prowl these woods, not mere beasts but guardians of old. You swallow, tasting pine dust on your tongue. The thought of wandering packs stirring beneath the ferns quickens your pulse, yet curiosity propels you forward. You lift your axe, its haft smooth and familiar, and tread onto the trail. The ground is soft with needles and fallen leaves, muffling each step. Sunbeams slice through the canopy, painting the path in shifting mosaics of light and shade. At your side, the skald hums a low tune, weaving verse from the land's atmosphere, the whisper of hidden springs, the murmur of ancient stones. His melody flows like a living thing, coaxing memories from the earth itself. Birds, silver thrushes and ash-winged finches, flit above, their calls a staccato accompaniment. Behind you, the crackle of dried branches under boot, and the distant clink of metal as your companions ready for what lies ahead. The trail opens onto a clearing dominated by monolithic stones arranged in a rough circle. Moss and lichen braid across their surfaces, and the air tingles with something unnerving, an energy older than any of you. In the centre rests a low altar carved from basalt, its edges faceted like a wolf's fang. Strange symbols, neither rune nor Latin, swirl across the slab in flowing lines. The navigator kneels, brushing away debris to expose more of the carvings. These marks a pact made long ago, he whispers, an alliance between seafaring clans and the isle's wild spirits, blood for safe passage. A hush falls. You feel the weight of unseen eyes, the wolves that may watch from cave and hollow, the ancestors whose breath still lingers in the circle. You crouch to trace a symbol, a wolf's head crowned by a spiralling knot. Touching cold stone, you sense the heartbeat of the isle, steady, ancient, defiant. Behind you, voices stir as a scouting party returns. They bear news. An abandoned hermit's cabin lies further inland, smoke-stained but standing. Its occupant, rumour says, knows the isle's secrets, maps of hidden coves, catalogues of herbs that heal wounds faster than any cleric's prayer, whispers of a spring whose water grants sight beyond the mortal veil. The Jarl arrives at the stone circle's edge, cloak brushing pine needles. His gaze drifts over the altar, then to his assembled crew. "By the wolves' pact," he intones, voice deep as thunder, "we claim safe passage until tides turn." He draws his sword, blade singing as it leaves its scabbard, and lays its tip upon the altar's centre. You step beside him, laying your own axe at the blade's heel. The skald raises his voice in chant, words half remembered, half formed by the ancient air. The wind stirs, rattling the pines in a slow ovation. Somewhere in the distance, a long howl ripples through the trees, solid and sure. It echoes again and again until the forest hums with response. You close your eyes, letting the cadence fill you, heartbeats echoing wolf howls, echoing ancestral drums. When at last the skald falls silent and the Jarl withdraws his sword, the cabin's chimney coughs a plume of smoke into the sky. The wolves' pact stands honoured. You feel it in every sinew, every breath. The Isle's heartbeat now charges your own. Together you march toward the hermit's domain, through shadowed woods where every rock and root holds a story, and every gust of wind bridges the worlds of gods, men, and beasts. The Wolf Isle's secrets unfurl before you like a tapestry woven in moonlight and rune-forged steel, promising revelations that will reshape your raid's legacy and your very understanding of the Viking world. Here, on Vargun, you are more than a raider or trader. You're a seeker of old magic, bound by oath and driven by wonder. And as the forest closes behind you, the long howl fades, leaving just the steady rhythm of your own pulse. Winds of change on Vargun. The sky unravels in streaks of pink and pale blue as dawn unfurls over Vargun, a breath caught between night and day. You emerge from the hermit's cabin, boots crunching on frost-kissed needles, and immediately note the hush. No gull cries, no rustling deer, only the wind threading through pine boughs. The air's sharper here, charged with secrets uncovered under moonlight. Stepping onto a narrow ridge, you survey the world below. A patchwork of emerald moss carpets, rocky outcrops crowned with gnarled pines, and pockets of mist pooling in hollows like watching spirits. The longship rests hidden among boulders on the opposite shore, its dark hull laced with salt. Between you, the hermit's fire smoke curls towards sky, promising warmth and counsel. You follow a winding path that sweeps past the rune circle, now quiet under dawn's glow. The stones, cold and still, keep silent watch. Fern fronds loop at their bases, brushing ankles in greeting. A lone raven circles overhead, its shadow skimming the earth like prophecy. As you descend, the hermit steps into view, stooped but alert, robes patched with faded fabrics, hair tangled with needles of pine. He greets you without a word, leading you into his dwelling built half hidden in a rocky alcove. Inside, shelves carved from fallen logs hold jars of dried herbs, bones polished smooth, and torn pages of foreign manuscripts. He gestures to a low table, where a leather-bound tome lies open. Its pages brim with charts of lunar phases and maps of unseen coastlines. You lean in, tracing inked lines that weave between islands and hidden gulfs, annotations in a flowing hand. Skirn's Passage, Vale of the North Wind, where earth and ocean merge. The hermit's voice, hushed as a breeze through reeds, explains that these maps chart currents and stars, wind patterns that shift with seasons, and secret channels that only reveal themselves when the moon drinks at the tide. To navigate beyond Skerries, you will need this knowledge, and a talisman he crafts, a carved bone pendant infused with ash from the rune circle's altar. He presses the pendant into your palm. Its weight is surprising, cool as river stone. When you hold it to the light, you see tiny runes etched around a wolf's snout. The hermit nods. With this, wolf's eyes will guide you. You slip the pendant into your tunic, heart racing as you feel its presence against your chest. An ember of power and promise. Outside, the breeze shifts, stirring flickers of sunlight across the cabin's mossy roof. Gathering your companions, you share the hermit's wisdom. Steer by the night's constellation of the hunter's belt. Trust the whisper of wind through your pendant. Look for swirling eddies that hide safe passage beneath jagged cliffs. Each word lands like a hammer blow, forging resolve. The Jarl grips his sword's hilt, gaze steeled by determination. Eric hefts his hammer and nods, eager to test rune-forged maps against reality. Even the Skald falls silent, absorbing this arcane counsel. Finally, you step back into the forest's hush, the pendant's runes pulsing faintly against your heart. The wolves' howls drift through the trees, affirmation or reminder you cannot tell. But as you make for the beach, the path forward seems less daunting, guided by bone and blood, memory and magic. Reaching the shore, the longship awaits, sails furled, but oars ready. You board, each footstep a vow renewed, to carry the Wolf Isle's secrets across the sea, to thread the needle of skerries unscathed, and to bring back tales that will echo in Longhouse halls for generations. With oar in hand and pendant glowing beneath your tunic, you push off into the waters that glitter like scattered stars. The journey resumes under skies painted by dawn, carried on winds of change, faith in wolf and rune, and hearts set firm against the roar of the unknown. Passage through the storm fjord. Before dawn you slip from the wolf-guarded clearing, lantern extinguished, guided only by the hermit's pendant pulsing softly against your chest. The trail leads upward now, over ancient roots and moss-steeped stones, twisting through trunks where dawn's first light filters like molten gold. With each breath the air grows colder, and the horizon beyond the pines reveals jagged peaks pinned with snow, mountains that cradle the fjord you must traverse. Your boots crunch over frost-hardened needles, and the forest hush gives way to rushing water. Soon you glimpse the Stormfjord's mouth, a narrow inlet carved by glaciers, its walls sheer basalt cliffs that swallow all but a sliver of pale sky. Dark water surges within, flashing silver as waves collide and recoil under rocky teeth. The longship waits below on a makeshift cradle of logs and ropes, its hull nestled in a natural cradle. The crew moves with hushed urgency. Eric and two shipwrights lash fresh beams to reinforce the keel, while rowers stack cushions of rush matting to absorb the blow of choppy seas. You shoulder a coil of line and descend the rocky path, every step measured, heart racing with the fjord's roar. At water's edge, the Jarl surveys the scene, cloak drawn tight against biting wind. His gaze sweeps the inlet where breakers form and break in a relentless rhythm. He nods once, a silent command that sends you stepping into the shallows. The cold bites at your calves as you steady the gangplank, boots slipping on algae-slick stones. Each man boards swiftly, shield secured, oars readied, breath billowing like prayer in the chill. As the final comrade steps aboard, the shipwright gives a signal. With a collective shove you free the vessel from its cradle. It shudders, then floats, bow rising to meet the fjord's swell. The navigator snarls a warning. "Hold steady! Reef at first turn!" The first swell hits like a stone thrown against your spine. Oarsmen grip handles with whitened knuckles, straining against each surge. The prow plunges into cold water, sending spray arcing skyward in silvery curtains. You hold tight to the rail, heart pounding in your ears. Ahead, just beyond the inlet's bend, a hidden reef lurks. Only the hermit's map marks its subtle break in the current. The pendant pulses brighter as you angle the ship towards safer water. The helmsman shifts the rudder. The prow yawns just wide of entombing rocks. Relief crashes through you as the waves reorder into rhythmic swells. But the Stormfjord does not relent. Towering walls of stone rise on either side, funneling wind into a howling gale. The ship lurches and yaws, splinters groan under stress, and every oar stroke feels heavier, as though pushing against liquid iron. You lash yourself to the rail, shield at the ready, boots digging into the wet planks. Lightning flashes above, thin and jagged, illuminating spume-topped peaks and revealing a sky roiling with gunmetal clouds. The air snaps with electricity. Thunder cracks so close you taste it, a raw presence that shakes the world. In that flash you see them, dark shapes slicing through the waves to starboard. Long, slender hulls, sleek and silent, manned by shadow-clad figures, raiders, exiles. The Hermit's Council warned of rival bands drawn by whispers of Vargun's treasures. You grip your axe, breath-catching as realization dawns. This storm may not be your only battle. A horn shrieks from the hostile vessels, muffled by wind and foam. The Jarl bellows orders, but his words vanish in the gale. The crew shifts quickly, shields raised in a lattice of iron and wood, spears levelled toward unseen foes. Rowers fend off breakers, carving oars through water, while warriors brace for boarding. A wave towers, a liquid behemoth crashing toward you. At its crest, a second horn sounds, and the shadow ships surge, oars slamming, cutlasses flashing. For a heartbeat, storm and battle merge. Salt spray, rain-lashed steel, the howl of wind entwined with war cries. You brace, shield raised, and meet the first foe tumbling onto the deck, a lithe figure in dark leather, dagger drawn. Steel collides, ringing through the gale. Around you, combat erupts. Axes cleave timber, spears shatter, shields splinter. Each breath taste of brine and blood. Lightning cleaves the sky again, revealing carving on the enemy's banner, a skull entwined with raven feathers. These are the Shadow Wolves, a clan as feared for raiding as for mastery of skuldcraft. Their leader leaps across the rail, blade raised for a killing strike. You meet him mid-leap, axe swinging in defiance. Metal screams. You block his thrust, steel biting steel. The deck tilts beneath you as the wave breaks, sending both combatants sprawling. Water sluices across shields, feet slip in rushing current. Still you grapple, axe edge meeting skull rib in sparks of defiance. A thunderclap shakes the world, and the pendant at your throat pulses hot against your chest, guiding, fortifying. The Skuld's chant rises above the chorus of battle, an invocation to the wolves of the Isle, a call for their ancient bond to tip fate's scales. In that flash of lightning you thrust true, and the Shadow Wolf's blade drops to the deck. His gaze meets yours, and for a moment, fury and respect intertwine, before he sinks beneath the waves' swirl. The battle rages on, but in that moment you stand unbowed, pendant glowing bright, heart a forge of ice and flame. The Stormfjord howls its fury as shields shatter and ropes snap, but your resolve cuts through the chaos. You will not yield, and as the sea heaves beneath the storm's wrath, you realize this is more than a passage, it's a crucible. Every breath, every heartbeat shapes the saga that will echo across fjord and longhouse for generations to come. Return to Hearth and Saga's Forge. Dawn's first light glints off the longship's prow as you guide it into familiar waters. The fjord nestled between towering cliffs and frost-kissed meadows. Every wave that laps against the hull feels like a pulse, carrying you closer to home and the waiting hearth fires of the longhouse. Behind you lies the Wolf Isle's mysteries, its packed etched stones and storm-forged battles. Ahead, the heart of your clan awaits, eager ears tuned for tales of distant shores. You lower the sail in measured motions, the canvas rustling like whispered memories. Oars plunge into glassy water, carving a straight path through the fjord's mirror. Along the rocky banks, pines bow with morning dew, droplets glittering like scattered gemstones. A seal bobs its head in curious greeting before vanishing beneath ripples. The journey's reflection settles in your mind. The hermit's bone talisman pulsed guidance through treacherous passages. The Wolf Isle's guardians honoured the ancient alliance. The Stormfords tested your steel and spirit. And the Shadow Wolves showed that honour and conflict walk side by side. You trace each memory as though it were a rune on your soul, an indelible mark of who you've become. Morning mist recedes as the fjord widens, revealing patchwork fields and clusters of sod-roofed longhouses. Smoke spirals from chimneys, and distant horns, calls of welcome, carry faintly on the breeze. You lean forward, heart hammering, as the figurehead carved in grand likeness of Fenrir lurches into view, keeping silent vigil over home waters. Landing parties assemble along the shore, women with open arms and children clutching wooden toys fashioned like tiny shields, elders leaning on carved staves, eyes shining with anticipation. The Jarl's horn echoes a return's cry, a triumphant note that rings across water and sky. As the gangplank settles, you step ashore, boots sinking into coarse sand flecked with shells. Every eye turns to you. Clan members, shield maidens, and warriors who stayed behind. They await your report, your tales woven in words as your comrades wove cloth and hammered iron for this very moment. You join the cortege led by the Jarl, cloak tails billowing in salute. The path winds upward through a gate of standing stones, monoliths kissed by moss and rune-carved wisdom. At the threshold, the Jarl raises his hand in gesture of unity. The caravan enters the courtyard of the great house. Inside, the long table groans under the weight of salted meats, honeyed loaves, and steaming bowls of root stew. Torches blaze, casting amber light over shields hung on rafters and tapestries depicting ancestral conquests. The air thrums with welcome and reverence. This is more than a feast. It is the forge where saga is born. You stand before the high seat as the Jarl raises a horn of mead. To our bold warriors returned, he proclaims, voice resonant as thunder. Your deeds echo through the halls of the gods. Speak now, that our children learn courage and our skalds craft new verses. At once the skald steps forward, harp in hand, weaving a prelude of sound that lifts the breath in every throat. Then you begin, voice steady, painting scenes of hidden coves where water turned fierce, of runes glowing under moonlit stones, of wolves howling honour, and battles waged under storm-lashed skies. Each word is a brushstroke, forging vivid images in every mind. The crowd leans in, eyes wide, as you recount the wolf-packed sacred ceremony, the hermit's maps guiding through reefs, the clash with shadow wolves amid lightning's glare, and the pact's renewal in forest glens. You slip out the bone talisman and hold it aloft. The runes catch torchlight, flickering in time with your tale. A hush falls as the skald concludes with a soaring refrain, drums of war, whispers of fate, and the promise of journeys yet to come. Then horns blast, joyful, thunderous, filling the hall with sound that rattles shields and quickens hearts. You feast and celebrate as mead flows freely. Laughter rings where silence once held sway. Children tug at your cloak, urging stories of wolf guardians and hermit sages. Elders nod in solemn pride. The skin of your forearm still tingles with salt and adrenaline, but here, by the hearth, it warms into nostalgia. When the night wears on and firelight dances low, You slip from the hall to stand under the wide northern sky. Stars shimmer, a vast tapestry that links your clan's hearth to distant lands you've touched. The wind carries distant howls, perhaps the echoes of wolves still guarding Vargan, perhaps the breath of the sea whispering of further horizons. In your chest, the runes pulse softly on the pendant you now wear as heirloom. You know the saga continues beyond these walls. New alliances beckon, new threats gather beyond known seas, and the call of adventure remains an unbroken strain in your heart. Tonight, the Longhouse sleeps under the watch of ancestors. Tomorrow, the horizon awaits. But for now, you hold this moment, a triumphant return, a tale immortalized by firelight, a living bridge between the wild and the hearth. And in the hush before dawn's next breath, you whisper your vow. The Viking saga endures, as endless as the fjord, as fierce as the wolf's howl, as boundless as the sea itself. Echoes of the North Sea. The dawn haze lifts slowly as the longship glides from the fjord's mouth into the open expanse of the North Sea. You stand at the prow, cloak whipping around you, watching foam trail off the keel like ribbons of moonlight. The hermit's pendant lies warm against your chest, its runes now familiar as the oar's rhythm. Behind you, the cliffs of home recede, replaced by an endless horizon painted in silver and slate. Each breath tastes of salt and promise. The crew, hardened by storm and shadow, moves in deliberate silence. Rowers dip their blades in unison, forging through gentle swells that ripple under pale skies. Above, clouds drift eastward, carrying whispers of lands untold. Lush vineyards, smouldering citadels, markets aflame with spices from distant shores. This is the sea's unbridled domain, where every wave is a verse in an epic as old as time. You recall the skald's chant, the rune circle's oath, and the clash with shadow wolves amid the Stormfjord's roar. Now that same pulse guides you toward the open ocean's mysteries. As morning light strengthens, you descend to the deck's centre to confer with the navigator, whose eyes glimmer with maps and stars. He unfurls a new parchment, charting a course toward rugged isles called the Svartruk, rumoured to brim with pitch-black stone and buried treasures. Asterisked notes mark hidden reefs and shifting tides. Beside them, runes warn of veiled currents that vanish under midday sun. Here, he says, finger steady, we turn south. If the wind holds, we will reach the first Svartruk at dusk. A thrill ripples through you. South, the direction of warm winds and golden grain. South, where the world blooms under unfamiliar skies. Yet the sea here is mercurial. Friendliness can curdle in an instant. You climb to the forecastle, scanning the horizon for songbirds or signs of land. None appear, only expansive water heaving toward infinity. A lone gull wheels overhead, its cry distant and mournful. You toss it a scrap of salted fish. For a moment its wings flicker like the promise of freedom. Below decks the crew prepares provisions, casks of fresh water, salted venison, blocks of hard cheese, leeks bound in straw. You taste a spoonful of porridge laced with creamed butter and flaky salt. Simple sustenance, but it fuels resolve. Suddenly the helmsmen shout, "Storm from the west, approaching fast." Grey clouds roll on the horizon, shaped like leviathans rising from the deep. The navigator's brow furrows as he scans the sky's roiling canvas. You leap to assist, hauling down sail lines with practised ease. Thunder rumbles low, a warning drumbeat that echoes in the hull. A squall sweeps in, wind roaring, rain spitting like jagged stones. The longship shudders, crews scramble, and you seize the pendant, drawing strength from its quiet warmth. The storm's teeth bite at the sky, but this time You face it not as naive raiders, but as sea-born children of Odin. Axes lash the halyards, shields brace the hatchways, and every man readies amid the gale's fury. Yet, in the heart of the storm, something shifts. The sea's roar dims to a hum, and you close your eyes against rain's sting. In that instant, the pendant's runes glow faintly, guiding your pulse to match the storm's secret rhythm. Lightning flashes, illuminating the tumult, and for one breath, you sense the sea's beating heart. When the gale breaks, the world stands cleansed. Rolling swells glint under a sun reborn, and the path southward lies open once more. The crew exhales, weariness and exhilaration mingling in the salt-laden air. Above, the gull returns, alighting on the mast to survey its domain. You smile, heft your axe, and join the navigator in plotting the course to the Svartruk Isles. Ahead lies another saga, of black stone cliffs, hidden grottos, and golden spoils waiting beyond the next horizon. But for now, you savour this calm after the storm, this fleeting moment when you and the sea share a secret understanding. The longship surges forward, carving new runes across the open ocean's surface, a testament to your journey's unending verse. And in the wind's soft sigh, you hear it, the echo of distant horns, the whisper of future sagas yet to be told. The black cliffs of Svartruk. The sea's horizon unfurls like an endless scroll as your longship cleaves through silken waves toward the Svartruk Isles. Each oar stroke punctuates the morning air, carrying your pulse away from familiar fjords and into the realm of black cliffs and hidden grottos. Dawn's light glints off the hermit's bone talisman, a steady beacon against the sapphire swell. The sky above is a vault of pale blue, streaked with wisps of cirrus that foretell both fair winds and sudden squalls. As you cross into open water, the crew falls into solemn harmony. Rowers dip their blades with metronomic precision, while archers tighten leather straps, sighting imaginary targets on the vanished shore. The cook hands you a bowl of spiced porridge steeped with juniper berries, its warmth grounding you as waves cradle the ship like a cradle. You swallow deeply, tasting the forest's echo in spice, anchoring body and mind before the trials ahead. Hours pass under the sun's patient gaze. The navigator emerges from below decks with chart in hand, runed maps annotated with the names of hidden inlets. Skugaham, the Bay of Shadows, Eldritch Cove, haunted by the sigh of winds that whisper of the underworld. With a steady voice he outlines the treacherous passage, sharp reefs that lie just beneath the surface, currents that reverse with the tide, and caverns carved by relentless storms. Skugaham is our first target, he announces, eyes bright with cautious excitement. There, the tide retreats at noon, revealing a spit of black gravel leading to caves etched into basalt walls. Within lies pitchstone, hard as steel, prized by smiths for edges that hold against any blade. A cheer rises among the crew, visions of pitchstone adzes and dagger blades dancing in their minds, yet excitement bristles with wariness. The sea here is fickle, the cliffs unwelcoming, and local legends murmur of sea trolls and phantom lights that lure unwary sailors to their doom. By midday, the cliffs loom at last, towering monoliths of obsidian-hued rock etched with veins of pale mineral. The longship manuals into the narrowing bay as the tide's teeth retreat, revealing a corridor of wet gravel and jagged stones. Oarsmen pause, allowing the keel to settle onto the pebbled floor. The drum of retreating waves echoes like a wounded beast easing into slumber. You step ashore, boots sinking into smooth obsidian pebbles that glint like spilled midnight. A hush falls. The cliffs tower overhead, walls slick with algae and lichen, their sheer faces pierced by cavern mouths yawning into shadow. The air tastes faintly of brimstone, sulphur's whisper mingling with sea spray. You lift the hermit's talisman to your lips, whispering a verse taught in his cabin. Stone of night, grant us sight, guide our path beyond the light. The pendant warms, pulsing reassurance against your chest. Together with the Jarl and a select party, smiths, warriors, and the Scald, you march along the narrow spit toward the largest cavern. Torches flicker to life in gloved hands, casting tremulous halos against dripping walls. Each step brings a squelch of damp gravel, and the distant drip of water echoing in hollow vaults. You feel the cavern's heartbeat in the murmur of your companions' breaths. Inside, the world transforms. Stalactites of glossy black stone hang like teeth above a labyrinth of narrow passages. Bioluminescent algae smear the walls in ghostly green, illuminating runes carved centuries ago. Marks of traders who once bartered jade and amber here. Your boots echo against basalt floors, and the scent of wet stone anchors you in the present. Ahead the passage divides. The navigator consults runes on a bone pointer, tracing lines in memory. One path slopes downward toward a subterranean pool, the other ascends toward a lofty alcove. You recall the hermit's counsel. The pool feeds hidden springs, the alcove holds treasures of the sky. Each possibility calls to different desires, water that grants clarity, or artifacts that echo starlight. With a nod, the Jarl chooses the pool's path. The ground tilts as you descend, torchlight dancing upon water's surface. A hush of expectation falls as the pool emerges, a basin of glassy liquid, shadowed by unearthly bioluminescence. At its centre, pitch stone outcrops jut like obelisks beneath the water's skin, their edges sharpened by ancient currents. You wade in, water cold as a dagger's kiss, and harvest chunks of stone, each shard ringing with a deep, resonant tone when tapped against your gauntlet. These will forge tools and blades unmatched in edge. But as you reach for another fragment, a distant tremor shakes the cavern. Stalactites rat. Rumble in the obsidian depths. A low tremor courses through the cavern like a beast stirring from slumber, and you freeze, torch held aloft, watching stalactites quiver overhead. A spray of mineral droplets falls, each one splattering against your gauntlet with a soft, urgent hiss. The cavern's dripping rhythm falters, replaced by a deep, resonant rumble that reverberates through the basalt floor beneath your boots. Around you, companions exchange tense glances. The smith steadies his hammer, the Scald grips his lyre like a shield, the navigator's bone pointer rattles in his hand. Then the world convulses. A roar of stone on stone echoes off cavern walls as a section of ceiling fractures, slabs of pitch-black rock, tumbling into the subterranean pool with thunderous impact. Water surges into the newly formed chasm, flooding the passages with a surge that sprays foam and mist, casting the torchlight into dancing chaos. You feel the sprays chill, pressure building in your ears as the water level rises, lapping against your calves before surging past your knees. Heart hammering, you shout a warning. Retreat! Your voice is swallowed by the cavern's roar, so you slam your axe haft against a nearby rock to signal. The crew reacts instantly. Boots slip on slick stone as they scramble toward higher ground. You leap across a widening fissure, landing in a crouch, water sluicing off your cloak. The pendant pulses hot against your chest, its runes glowing faintly in the torchlight, as if urging haste. Smoke of dust and dripping water mingles in the air, stinging nostrils with the scent of wet stone and debris. You gulp breath, tasting grit and salt, as you guide the Skald and the Navigator around a pivot of fallen rocks. Every step threatens to plunge you into the icy pool, so you grip carved grooves in the basalt walls for support. Each groove is worn smooth by centuries of water and wind. Your fingertips tingle at their cool touch. A second tremor strikes, and you brace against the heaving rock, shield raised overhead. A boulder the size of a lean boar tumbled from above, smashing into a pile of crates that held your precious pitchstone chunks. The crash splinters wood and sends shards flying like deadly needles. A scream echoes as one smithing apprentice scrambles backward, arms flailing. You dive to push him out of harm's way. Your shield deflects a chunk of timber that sails overhead, the impact reverberating against your arm like a drum. Dust and water flare into the torch's flame, casting dancing shadows that twist across the walls. The cavern's roof groans ominously, and another cascade of rubble creates a jagged barrier behind you, sealing off the path back to Skugaham Spit. Panic flares as you realise there is no turning back the way you came. Ahead, the passage slopes upward into darkness, an uncertain route, but the only hope. "Follow me," you bellow, hoisting your shield and planting your axe at your hip. Each footfall sends sprays of water cascading off basalt ridges, soaking your boots and chilling your spine. The tunnel narrows until you must turn sideways, shoulders scraping wet rock. The metallic ring of the pendant guides you, each pulse a tiny heartbeat in your palm. At last the passage opens into a widening gallery carved by ancient currents. Here, the air tastes less of damp earth and more of mineral richness, a hint of sulphur suggesting subterranean vents beyond. The walls curve in smooth arcs, polished by eons of flowing water. Pools of still, glassy water gather at your feet, reflecting torchlight into ripple-dazzle patterns on the ceiling. You lean in, cupping a handful of the basin's water. It's cool and faintly sweet, a gift in this hostile environment. Your lantern's glow reveals inscriptions along the walls, runes not of Viking clans, but symbols older, etched in a spiralling script. Each glyph entwines with a wolf's head motif, reminiscent of the Wolf Isle's pact circle. The Skald hums a low melody as he traces the glyphs, voice harmonizing with the cavern's dripping echoes, a lament and invocation rolled into one. Under Solstrand's golden arch. You awaken to a choir of seabirds, their cries weaving through dawn's rosy haze as the port of Solstrand hums to life. The longship's hull sighs against wooden pilings, and the air carries the sweet perfume of ripening grapes mingled with salty breeze. You step onto sun-warmed decking, shielding your eyes as light spills across ochre-roofed warehouses and terraced vineyards climbing gentle hills. Today, Solstrand's golden arch beckons, an invitation to marvel, to bargain, to weave your saga into this land's tapestry. Your first footsteps echo on cobbled quay stones slick with morning dew. Fishermen untangle nets brimming with silver-scaled mackerel, their wet sheen glinting like fragments of sky. Nearby, women in linen tunics bustle between stalls, draping cured meats, creamy cheeses, and jars of honey glistening amber under canvas awnings. You inhale the heady mix, peat smoke from distant hearth fires, the buttery tang of fresh emmer bread, and under it all a subtle sweetness of pressed olives, novelties to northern tongues. The Jarl strides beside you, cloak drawn gracefully across his broad shoulders. As you pass under the carved limestone arch, adorned with sun motifs and carved runes praising divine light, you notice the friezes, scenes of distant pilgrims, fleets landing on foreign shores, and offerings set before temple guardians. Each carving pulses with a story older than memory. A port official, resplendent in embroidered tunic the colour of burnt saffron, approaches with courteous bow. He extends a scroll sealed in tempered bronze, an invitation to the Sun Court, where Solstrand's magnates convene. Their council table is said to welcome only those whose tales and goods enrich the realm. The Jarl breaks the seal, eyes scanning flowing script penned by a scribe's practised hand. You lean close as he reads aloud. Great Jarl and honoured kin, we welcome your presence beneath Solstrand's glow. Bring your counsel and curiosities to the Sun Court at high noon. Our hearth awaits the light of your tales and the warmth of alliance. The Jarl nods, tucking the scroll beneath his arm. His voice warms as he addresses the community. Friends of olive and vine, we greet you in peace. May our bonds be as sturdy as your stone halls and as sweet as these sunlit fruits. A ripple of applause greets the pronouncement. You stroll through the market, absorbing every detail. A perfumer grinding rose petals into oils, the rhythmic tapping of a blacksmith shaping bronze trinkets, and a storyteller enthralling children with acrobatic flourishes of his staff. At a stall draped in violet cloth, merchants unveil spiced silks that shimmer like dusk. You run your fingers over the weave, cool and supple, and envision cloaks dyed deep purple to honour the Jarl's return. But Solstrand offers more than wares. Within its labyrinthine alleyways lie academies of lore, where philosophers debate the shape of the cosmos, and astrologers chart stars to divine fate. You pass one such domed edifice, its copper cupola shining like a miniature sun. Inside, scribes flank vellum scrolls that map celestial cycles, knowledge that could guide Viking voyages beyond the edges of all known seas. At the appointed hour you approach the Sun Court, a grand hall of white stone and honeyed light. Arching windows frame the harbour beyond, and columns sculpted with solar motifs line the marble floor. At its centre, a circular dais holds a table of polished oak ringed by cushioned seats. Solstrand's magnates, with turbans of embroidered linen, jewelled rings, and necklaces of carved ivory, rise to offer courtesy bows as the Jarl steps forward. The High Consul of Solstrand, a woman draped in robes of saffron and sapphire, extends a gilded goblet of spiced wine. Jarl of the North, she says in mellifluous accent, your travels honour our court. We await the stories of your exploits and the treasures you bring. But first, partake in friendship, taste Solstrand's finest. You sip the wine, warm, honeyed, spiced with cinnamon and clove, its finish a gentle warmth that glides through your chest. Then, stories unfold like banners in a summer breeze. The Jarl recounts voyages beneath the Wolf Isle's moonlit glens, the forge of the Heartstone Sanctum, and trials wrested from obsidian caves. Each tale earns murmurs of wonder and admiration, punctuated by the clink of goblets raised in tribute. When the Jarl presents pitchstone blades, the magnates lean forward to examine their gleam, fingers tracing the iron-hard edge. You too offer insights gleaned from the hermit's scrolls, charts of hidden passages, currents that carve secret channels, and the forgotten runes that bind wolves, sea, and flesh. Solstrand's astrologer, intrigued, offers access to her star charts, proposing a shared venture to map northern constellations from Solstrand's latitudes, guiding future raids or peaceful trade missions alike. As the sun dips toward the western hills, lanterns ignite along the colonnades, and music swells with lyres and flutes. Courtiers request dances, diplomats debate tariffs, and merchants finalise agreements, barrels of olive oil exchanged for pitchstone adzes, crates of honey for salted fish, and promises of future trade in amber and silk. Amid celebration, you feel the pulse of two worlds converging, Viking fortitude and Solstrand's radiance, The hermit's pendant hums with approval, its runes aligning with the sun's final glow. You sense new alliances forged, fresh sagas poised to unfold on greater seas under alien skies. Night falls, and torches line the quay, flickering reflections on gentle waves. The Jarl beckons you to the deck of the longship where a small feast awaits. Bread baked with olive oil, cheese aged by coastal breezes, and wine warmed by caravan spices. You stand there, tasting the union of your saga and Solstrand's brilliance, knowing that tomorrow's dawn will sail you onward, beyond this golden port toward horizons yet unconquered. Here, at the edge of sun and sea, you rest in triumph and anticipation, the Viking spirit undimmed, the world's wonders newly woven into your legend, and the next canvas of adventure beckoning just beyond Solstrand's golden gates. Breezes of promise beyond the archipelago. The dawn sky flutters with pale rose as your longship slips away from Solstrand's golden harbour, sails billowing gently in a breeze scented with vineyards and salt. Each plank beneath your boots carries the weight of alliances forged and sagas inked. Behind you, the ochre rooftops gleam, promising rest and revelry. Ahead lies an archipelago sketched on your newest parchment. Scattered islets veiled in morning mist, whispered to cradle hidden groves of citrus and sentinel ruins of lost temples. You stand at the prow, the hermit's talisman warm against your chest, runes flickering with anticipation. The navigator joins you, unfurling the scroll with letters written in Solstrand's flowing script, alongside Nordic runes, directions to the Isle of Golden Leaves, where autumn-coloured trees bear fruits that cure any ailment, and to the sunken citadel, whose half-submerged columns hold chambers rich with lost lore. The crew moves in quiet harmony. Oars dip softly into teal waters, shields stacked by the rail, axes sheathed. Above, gulls wheel in lazy spirals, their cries a delicate counterpoint to the oar's hymn. You inhale, tasting dawn's dew and vineyard smoke, feeling renewed purpose flowering in your heart. The archipelago emerges through morning haze, jagged cliffs coated in ivy, tiny sandy coves dotted with seabirds, and groves of trees whose leaves shimmer gold in early light. You guide the longship toward the nearest isle, bracing for fickle currents that swirl around rocky outcrops. The helmsman's steady hands navigate sharp bends, while you stand ready, cloak drawn for warmth and protection. Landing on a beach strewn with driftwood and fragments of ceramic, you step onto warm white sand flecked with coppery bits of shell. The air here is thick with citrus blossom, an intoxicating perfume that transports you from northern pines to sun-drenched groves. The Jarl signals to disembark. Warriors spread shields to form a protective ring as scouts advance. You follow their lead into the grove, where trees rise tall, their bark etched with moss and the fruits of legend hanging heavy amid golden leaves. Sunlight filters through the canopy in shifting patterns, illuminating clusters of fruit that glow with an inner amber light. You reach to pluck one, its skin warm as a hearthstone, and smell honeyed sweetness mingled with spice. Behind you, the navigator kneels before a stone pedestal half swallowed by roots. He brushes away fallen leaves to reveal carvings of a dragon coiled around a sunwheel, symbols of vigilance and renewal. A small hollow cradles a ceremonial bowl. You pour juice from the golden fruit into it, offering thanks to ancient spirits. The liquid steams, scenting air with warmth and promise. A hush falls as the grove responds, leaves rustle in a gentle wind, sunlight intensifies, and the scent deepens, a sign the spirits accept your offering. The Jarl kneels beside you, raising the bowl to his lips. He tastes the nectar, eyes closing in reverent delight, then passes it to you. You sip, feeling vitality bloom through every vein and thought sharpening with newfound clarity. Scouts return with news. Near the grove's edge lie weathered steps carved into stone, leading into an ancient temple built upon the sea. They bear coral-inlaid lanterns. You ignite their wicks to reveal a path bordered by sculpted lions and vines. With shields raised and torches in hand, you enter the structure's cool embrace. Columns stand half-submerged in tidal pools, seaweed cascading in silent drapes, bioluminescent algae painting the floors with emerald light. The air tastes of salt and memory. You follow carved reliefs depicting offerings to sea gods, sailors casting amber beads into churning waves, and priests invoking storms to veil hidden passages. At the temple's heart, you find a circular chamber where a domed ceiling arches overhead, its mosaic tiles depicting constellations mirrored in Solstrand star charts. In the centre rests a stone basin carved with interlocking wolves and serpents. Water within glows softly, echoing moonlight even at noon. The navigator consults his bone pointer, tracing the basin's carved lines as if reading destiny itself. A distant tolling resonates through tunnels, the bell of the sunken citadel calling. You realise this temple is but a prologue. Beneath these arches lies an underwater passage to sunken halls of a lost civilization, where tomes of lore wait to be reclaimed. The Jarl's eyes gleam with ambition. You feel the tide's pull, urging onward. With hearts steeled and spirits renewed by golden fruits and sacred waters, you prepare to dive into submerged corridors, forging deeper into the archipelago's mysteries. The sea's song beckons, an aria of salt, legend and boundless adventure, promising discoveries that will shape your saga beyond any horizon you've yet known. Descent into the sunken citadel. With dawn's first silver light kissing the golden leaves behind you, the longship parts from the Isle of Golden Leaves, oars dipping in hushed reverence. Your pulse thrums in tandem with the soft slap of water against the hull, each breath carrying the lingering sweetness of citrus groves and the salty promise of the sea. Ahead lies the hidden entrance to the sunken citadel, a labyrinth buried beneath tide and stone, where lost wisdom awaits those daring enough to delve. The crew moves with quiet purpose. Rowers steady their rhythm, warriors sheath axes, and scouts gather carved coral lanterns to illuminate submerged halls. You secure the hermit's pendant at your chest, its runes warm and guiding, then step forward, heart alight with anticipation. The navigator spreads a worn map across the gunwale, tracing a curled inlet marked only by shifting tides and the faint rune of a twisted column. When the inlet emerges, a crescent of calm water encircled by rock, you push off into the shallows. The tide here shifts like breath, alternately bearing and hiding the citadel's broken archways and half-drowned towers. A hush falls as the crew slips silently beneath carved keystones that bear wolf and serpent motifs, relics of the citadel's distant guardians. Below the gunwale, oars dip into water dark as onyx. You steady yourself against a low ceiling of rough-hewn stone, torchlight dancing across submerged carvings. Fish drift between columns like living motes, glimpsed in the lantern's glow. The air tastes faintly of brine and ancient dust. Ahead, the passage widens into a grand hall where flickers of bioluminescent algae coat walls in ghostly emerald. Pillars rise like drowned sentinels, their capitals carved with scenes of sea gods and mortal kings kneeling before them. The floor is slick with shallow water. Each step echoes softly, amplifying the hush. You guide the group toward a raised dais at the hall's centre, where a circular basin carved of basalt holds water, both deep and mysterious. The basin's rim is inlaid with bronze, etched with runes that promise revelation to those who offer true intent. You kneel and uncork a vial of hermit-blessed water, pouring a single drop into the basin. The liquid ripples, then glows, erecting spectres of light that rise like ghostly sails under sea. Above, the vaulted ceiling shatters. Stone cracks and cascades fall as a tremor shakes the depths. A distant roar vibrates through the cavern. Not sea, but something alive. Warriors ready shields. You feel the hermit's pendant flare hot. The spectres swirl faster, coalescing into shapes, figures clad in scale and kelp, their eyes flickering like deep-sea lanterns. The citadel guardians emerge, spirits of sailors and kings bound to this place, their forms half water, half stone. They circle, silent as tides pull, testing your resolve. You step forward, torch held high, voice steady, invocations of honour, tribute to lost mariners, oaths of your own flesh and blood. The guardians pause, their eyes reflecting your candour. One drifts closer, hand skeletal and seaweed draped, and extends it toward the basin. You touch fingertips to bronze rim, feeling a pulse, a heartbeat older than star or sky. The chamber responds with a low hum, the water's glow intensifying until glyphs carved in the basin's sides shine with living light. Visions shimmer on the water's surface, routes to unexplored islands, treaties forged in blood and runes, the rise and fall of empires born on both sea and land. The skald reads aloud in hushed wonder as each image unfolds a lesson, guidance and caution woven like nets of silver. The guardians recede, their forms dissolving into algae-lit mist. The tremor ceases, and water settles to its quiet rhythm. You rise, chest filled with newfound knowledge, heart heavy with responsibility. The citadel's blood beats have aligned with your own. As you guide the crew back through the submerged arches, you carry in memory the citadel's revelations. Each stroke of the oar echoes with the hum of ancient wisdom. Beyond the ruins, the sea opens to dawn-bright waters, awaiting your next foray into the unknown. On deck, sunrise gilds the horizon. You stand at the rail, eyes fixed on a world reborn in light and lore, ready to chart courses painted by visions beneath the waves. The Viking saga continues, etched forever in water, stone, and story. Voyage into twilight waters. The sea at dusk is a mirror of molten silver and bruised purple as you gather on deck, the long ship gliding southward under a sky braided with the day's last light. Your breath comes in easy swells, no longer the ragged gasp of struggle but the steady rhythm of a voyage well earned. Behind you lie the Isle of Golden Leaves and the sunken citadel's spectral halls. Ahead, twilight waters beckon with whispered promises of distant shores and secrets yet unclaimed. The hermit's bone talisman rests against your breast, its runes warm, a heartbeat in sync with your own. Around you, the crew moves in hushed harmony, shields stowed, oars nestled by the rail, lanterns lit with soft yellow glow. A gentle breeze carries the scent of citrus blossoms you left behind, mingling with pine smoke and salt. It is the perfume of a world in motion, of transitions between wild spring and ripe autumn. At the prow, the navigator consults the rune-inscribed chart that guided you through submerged passages. Now, under evening stars, he marks a new course, westward past a scattered chain of islets dotted with phosphorescent reefs, toward the uncharted bay known in whispers as the Twilight Waters. Local lore tells of mariners guided home by the glow of bioluminescent plankton, their ships leaving ghostly trails amid islands draped in rose-hued mists. "Prepare the lantern nets," he commands, voice low and steady. "We'll fish for plankton as we sail. Their glow may light our path through the gloaming." You and two sailors haul woven nets painted with pitchstone shards, sharp fragments that deter barnacles from the hold. At your signal, lanterns ignite and nets dip over the starboard side, floating like dark parasols awaiting secret treasures. Moments pass in patient stillness, until one lantern nets a shimmering swirl of tiny lights, each plankton drifting like fallen stars. You gather the net slowly, water dripping against the wood as the lantern's inner bowl fills with faint spectral luminescence. Saga's Zenith, Homeward Echoes and New Horizons. Under a sky painted with pre-dawn lavender, you guide the longship from the twilight water's phosphorescent glow toward the distant silhouette of your fjord's mouth. Each oar stroke carries the echo of battles won and mysteries unravelled, weaving a tapestry of salt, spirit and story beneath the rising sun. The deck thrums with quiet anticipation as the crew prepares for one final stretch. Homeward bound, yet eyes alight with dreams of journeys yet to come, the hermit's talisman, now weathered and warmed by countless trials, rests against your breast, its runes shining softly as if offering a steady heartbeat amid the tide's rhythm. Behind you lie isles of golden leaves, sunken citadels, and Solstrand's sunlit courts. Ahead, the fjord's familiar cliffs beckon, draped in mist like ancient sentinels welcoming weary travellers. As the shoreline sharpens into focus, you recall the wolves packed beneath moonlit stones, the forge of embers in the Heartstone Sanctum, the crash of storm and steel in the Stormfjord's tempest, each memory a rune etched in your soul. Now, you prepare to share these runes with those waiting at the great house hearth. In the distance, familiar banners ripple atop ramparts, wolves and ravens entwined in midnight knot, your clan's emblem. Fishermen on small boats pause, tipping hats in silent salute as the flagship's carved prow cleaves the calm waters. Children line the docks, faces bright with wonder, while elders lean on carved staves, their eyes reflecting both pride and anticipation. Landing parties fling lines ashore. The longship thuds against wooden pilings. You step onto coarse sand flecked with shells, a grounding breath after months afloat. The Jarl's horn sounds once, a clear note that rings through fjord and sky, calling all to gather. Through the standing stone gate, you make your way to the great house, a hall of oak and stone, its rafters hung with shields and tapestries depicting your clan's saga. Torches flicker, casting amber light on faces eager for your return. At the high seat the Jarl raises a horn of mead, his eyes gleaming with triumph and kinship. "Welcome home, saga weavers," he proclaims. "Your journey's end is our beginning. Speak now, that every ear may carry your tales, every heart may learn courage anew." You stand before the long table, the hermit's talisman in hand, and speak in second-person voice, weaving the tapestry of your odyssey, the wolf-bound woods, the Wolf Isle's ancient pacts, the Heartstone's binding, the obsidian depths, Solstrand's sunlit alliance, and the glowing twilight waters. Each scene comes alive in vivid detail, the hiss of waves, the cry of gulls, the pulse of runes beneath your fingertips. The hall breathes with collective memory, laughter of feasting, gasps at narrow escapes, reverent silence for sacred rites. The skald takes up your threads, singing refrains that ripple through rafters and shatter silence like rune-carved hammers on anvil. When at last your tale draws to its zenith, you raise the hermit's talisman high. Its runes blaze with woven light, a final sign of the saga's living pulse. The Jarl leads a thunderous cheer, horns blown, shields struck, mead splashed in joyous tumult. As the hall reverberates, you sense the saga's edge. This chapter closes, but the story's horizon stretches ever onward. Outside, the fjord's waters shimmer under dawn's promise, and beyond lie worlds yet uncharted. 2 more journeys await around the bend. Don't miss them. Subscribe and ring that bell.